And I truly hope it's working. It says so. Welcome everyone to this edition of the Ember community debates. This time, new format again, trying things. Um, yeah, the coronavirus basically has dominated the news cycle for the past well month or something, and well, a lot of different measures have been taken around the world. So we thought we would discuss those. Joining us are Dakota, say hi, Boris,
Hey guys.
Michael, who can talk, Orange Team,
Hello.
and Objectivist Dollar. So, Boris, what about? Can you start?
Sure, that's fine. I mean, it's kind of been in the news cycle for at least a month now, but obviously it's been going on for uh, what is it? About 4 months, I think. I'm pretty sure we heard about it already in December, early January. But yeah, obviously kept an eye on things happening around the world. Buzzing messages out there. There's something going on in a region there. I think we were already pretty early with all the memes around Corona. If you reorder the words, the letters, you get raccoon, and you get all kinds of speculations about the secret laboratories, as they are also the research lab had the same logo as Umbrella does from the Resident Evil games. From the Resident Evil games, the popular zombie games.
Real quick, correct the record on that. That is not actually true. The lab
No.
itself didn't have that logo. That was a picture of another lab, I think a few hundred miles away.
All right.
But it's also still that is a real logo of an actual
Uh
lab
huh.
in China. So it's not the real one.
Uh-huh. Point being that those information was already going around, and obviously nobody around that time knew what it was going to be. Um, I'm sure there were some preppers already getting ready in late December, but I think it hit the internet really hard in January, when people were really trying to freaking out. And I think late February it actually hit the mainstream, uh, or mid-February or
something
something
like
like
that.
that.
And maybe I'm a little bit off, but yeah, it's been going on for a good month, and it's been going real quick. Like every week, there's a big change, not just in what we're hearing, not just in the well, I don't want to say fear mongering, but because the threat seems pretty real. But it seems like with every week we're upping the stakes, kind of like it seems more dangerous, and society and government reacts maybe appropriately, maybe not really appropriately, but at least they react. Um, People are asked to isolate themselves, and at times even governments um, uh, enforce isolation. So we'll be addressing that. I think we can address both government action taken and action taken by society itself. Like people either choose to isolate or choose to totally ignore what the hell is going on and just go on with what they're doing, going out, meeting people, putting themselves up and open for infection. Um, yeah, and of course, how all of this reflects on our values of being able to choose how you live your life, being able to choose who you hang around with, and maybe who not. But it's a it's a really big, intense situation that's just keeps it's really, really unstable. It just keeps developing so quickly from week to week, sometimes just from day to day. So things we'll be saying now might be totally either irrelevant or short-sighted or whatever within a week. Um, but it's really interesting to think about where we are now and where we might be going. So I think maybe it's a good place to start. Maybe if kind of putting ourselves in a position where we are right now, what's going on in the world, and how governments are reacting. I don't really know the numbers, but do we have any numbers on how many people are infected worldwide?
infected? Actual numbers or official?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, the idea was kind of like I heard for every one infected, there's probably 9 others running around who haven't
I
been
heard it's
diagnosed yet.
100.
100. Well, that
Yeah,
sounds terrible.
it does,
Uh,
doesn't it?
yeah.
But it's more likely to be accurate, all things considered.
Well, you know,
Um,
I wouldn't be surprised. I don't like hearing it, but I wouldn't be surprised.
well, I
What's
want
the
to.
ratio?
I want to go back in time before this was all going on. This is terrible.
Yeah. Oh, and I heard those. I'm sorry I don't have those graphs here with me, but I saw one a claim that if China, who suppressed people talking about it as early as November, who possibly executed or at least silenced people who were talking about it. Um, I'm gonna say these are all uh, hypotheticals. I'm not making any accusations here because I just don't know what the hell is going. But we know that they've
Accusations
been
to who?
um, well to the Chinese government
Well,
for
That's fair.
the silencing of doctors did happen. They silenced the doctor named Dr. Lee.
yeah, absolutely. That absolutely happened. Like I don't know what eventually happened with him, but we well he died, right? He died
Yeah,
from the virus.
Yes,
We were
allegedly.
told. Yeah,
actually.
but yeah, but we know that
Allegedly.
that he didn't get his message out there, and that we were actively
Well,
working to not.
I'm I'm writing an article right now on this, and I,
Mhm.
Michael, and another member of the LAA, we've come across a couple of recordings. Is it recordings, Michael, or is it the actual recordings we have, or is it
But
like
we well, he
just the
died,
fact that there
right?
were recordings that CNN did with Dr. Lee, but they didn't publish?
So what was in these recordings?
I was expecting Michael to say something. CNN did interviews with him, but they didn't
Hmm.
publish them.
With the doctor?
Yeah.
That's
Oof.
crazy that they wouldn't publish them. I
Deja
mean,
vu. It's like ABC all over again regarding the Epstein story.
oh, that was terrible. They've been
Deja
suppressing that for
vu.
2 years, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
There
but
was
it's
a
crazy.
document that was leaked, I think it was around mid-January. There was a transcript of a speech that Xi Jinping, the president of China,
Hmm.
had made, and it took place around. I think it was before even November. It was either in November or before November,
Huh.
talking about uh, doing elements of quarantine, and they wasn't really being specific on what the
All
actual reason
right.
was. And there were
Anyway,
areas in China that were already starting to shut down regions prior to any sort of announcement from the Chinese Communist Party.
And they were also
um,
reprinting money, right?
Yes.
also to clarify real fast, because I wasn't able to speak,
Yeah. Go ahead.
yes, there were moments where Dr. Lee was sending text messages to CNN and more to warn the US about everything, and they didn't publish anything that was sent to them personally. There's also video footage from Fox that basically discusses it. But again,
Hmm.
they just briefly combed over it. This is before Mao and all the other people in China were just doing their own thing and trying to get people to shut up about it.
You mean Xi Jinping
I'm sorry.
You mean Xi Jinping?
You said
instead of
Mao.
Mao?
I mean,
Sorry,
he's basically
sorry,
Yeah.
Mao.
sorry.
That's
My
fair.
problem. My problem. Winnie,
Uh,
I know him as Winnie the Flu as well.
Yeah, yeah.
right. Yeah.
Enemy of the human
Also,
race, you know.
I should probably elaborate. Reprinting the money is speculated. Well, the virus can be transferred through money, right? I think the virus can live for several days on
Well,
surfaces.
they recently there was a few articles coming out, and I haven't checked the sources myself, but they're saying that the virus now can stay up to 14 or 17 days, one of those two numbers,
Oh, fucking great.
on surfaces.
Yeah, I think that was the case on the Diamond Princess. They found some.
Yeah, that was why.
Yep, they found some coronavirus on some samples that people hadn't been near for that long.
Hmm. So
Yeah,
maybe this is a
quarantining the ship
conservative estimate.
might have been a worse decision considering the virus allegedly was being circulated through the ship's air filtration system.
Yeah, that's a ship on the coast of Japan, right?
It was off the coast of Japan, and then it was off the
Yeah,
coast of California, and they didn't want the ship to dock to California yet, but they couldn't just keep everybody onto a plague ship, obviously.
yeah, that's just like a death sentence.
It's pretty
Well,
much that
I
sentence.
mean, we're still. I think the death toll is between 3% and 15 or something. They can't really put a thumb on it, but it's not good being on a place like that. And also, if you have limited medical care, I'm assuming that the death toll will be higher.
For sure.
Um, yeah, it's crisis. I mean, that happened. We had this ship that was just floating around, being like a plague boat. Um,
Because it's transmitted via water droplets, and you're on a ship
mm,
on the water,
yeah,
bunch of people in an enclosed space with air that circulates. It's bound to get
right.
around the whole ship.
But we also, I don't know, I can imagine it also happening in other countries. I also heard about in Spain where, how do you say it? Elderly homes were just abandoned. Personnel
Yeah.
were just like, fuck this shit, I'm out of here. Just left elderly just to die. And they found like a couple days later or weeks later, they found out, oh, wait, nobody's actually taking care of these elderly here. Um, People are just panicking, flipping a switch, and from one day to the next, they just, you know, and we don't know how to react. We don't know what the fuck to do. Um, so we just hear all these cases popping up of people just being left
Yeah.
to cope with it alone.
After natural disasters happen all over the world, a similar thing
Hmm.
takes place in elderly homes and just
Yeah,
homes of people who are getting up there in age. During Hurricane Katrina, there were a lot of
yeah,
people
that's a
that
good
ended
one.
up dying that were not necessarily counted towards the final death toll of the hurricane because
Hmm.
they were people who lived on basically government and private healthcare workers who would have to visit these elderly people's homes to give them
Right.
food and take care of them, and they died because no one could get to them for an extended period of time. Couldn't get food, couldn't get their you know what changed, just nothing.
And
All
there's like
left alone.
two or three people in the world who actually know that they needed care.
Yeah,
And if there's two or three people
exactly.
that act on it or don't get a chance to, like there was also this kid in, and I'm sure it was not the only one, but in China, I don't know if it was Wuhan, but his parents and brothers got quarantined. He was in a wheelchair. He was wheelchair bound. He needed help, and they just, that was like begging, like, please let me get back to my kid. Didn't get to return home for a week, and the kid just died all alone there in his wheelchair.
Man.
So yeah, that's what worries me the most, or you know, angers me to some point, is it's not that some people and some governments are underreacting or that some are overreacting, but that we just don't have anything in place. Like say just a global. I'm sure there are some. Um, there are some regulations, some think tanks for this, but there is not a government stepping in like, we know what to do here. We don't know, like, I would love them to for them to say like, we don't know the extent or the severity of this, but we have a basic regulation that we can just enact right now. Calm down, we're just going to do this, and then we'll see whether if we overestimated or underestimated it. Now it's just.
So much misinformation spreading around on social media,
Mhm.
and the government is not one unified force, say the US government or the
Right.
European governments. There are some elements even within the US government that are saying that they don't know all of the information, and there's some elements that are saying stay calm, we have this taken care of.
Right.
The point is they don't have this taken care of. The only way that you could have prevented this situation would be to have prior plans in place in case a pandemic like this occurred.
No,
The
exactly.
United States did not have one.
Oh,
You had some
serious?
theories, there just was no plan.
I think we at least had basically a book ready, right? Don't know if you now know about that, Boris.
No.
The Dutch, you know the one.
I don't know what
The
you're talking about.
country of the
Uh,
Dutch, the people's land of Dutchland.
our
Oh, damn, builder.
government bureau,
Um,
GGZ.
The
oh,
Netherlands.
sure, yeah, like our healthcare organization. How do you call it? Administration. But they had like a book for specific guidelines for what to do in this situation.
Well, we
How
at least have
detailed is it?
something.
Well, I don't know if they did, but I'm asking York here.
That's what I'm asking,
Um,
Yorick. How detailed was that, Yorick?
I'm not quite sure on the
hmm.
surface. I would have to Google.
Because and maybe I'm also assuming there's a lot of miscommunication and political games being played. I heard from several. What was going on? Like currently, they're talking in the U.S. about the maybe rolling out some kind of UBI, like a universal basic income, for a couple
Yeah.
months. I don't know how they're really going on with that, but I do know that when they were writing that, like um, Democrats and Republicans wanted to put all kinds of other regulations in there as well, like
Yeah.
not actually caring about what's going on right now. No, let's also push some other or secret
Well,
agenda while we're doing
there was a
this.
bill that started in the House of Representatives
Hmm.
that called for a $1 trillion stimulus package.
Right.
That stimulus package is what it was going to include hundreds of billions of dollars that were going to go to bailing out the banks, going to low interest loans for home mortgages that would have to be paid back within 3 years if they could. That was
Hmm.
for the banks, not for the home mortgages. The home mortgages seem to
Right.
not have any sort of repaying attached to it, and it was going to give something like $1,200 to anyone who filed their taxes during 2018 or 2019. That was in the final bill.
Mm.
Um, that bill sort of just stopped for some reason, and that was the Senate bill. Sorry, that first one was the Senate bill. The second bill, the one that just got an agreement reached with the White House, the House, and the Senate, is a $2 trillion one that was
Mm.
written primarily by the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, of the Democratic Party. That also includes money that goes to the banks. Yet fewer people are talking about that when the Democrats have written this bill.
Yeah.
But it also calls for a whole host of insane, you can only describe it as socialist policies, race based policies.
Yeah.
Any corporation that gets money from this stimulus package has to start a diversity and
Oh
inclusion
Jesus
department
Christ.
Yeah.
within their company and raise their minimum wage to $15 an hour. Now, mind you, this bill has already been agreed with by the White House,
Hmm.
so this is likely to pass.
All right.
Uh, I mean, you just control F on the most recent documents for diversity, and you'll see at least 30 different instances. Last time I checked, it was about 1,100 pages. There's a lot in it, and most of it is Green New Deal esque nonsense.
I was going to
A
mention
lot
it.
of
Yeah.
carbon neutral type policies, which, for better or worse, having a better environment's great, but to push that through right now when the companies are literally,
Mm.
starting to crumble, it's not a good idea.
And when you're sneaking that in, where you're not being upfront, we're saying like we're doing this, and secretly you're also doing ABC and whatever.
Yeah.
You gotta know in your gut that you're doing something,
So
morally objectionable.
fascinating thing to note that I haven't seen anyone mention when the $1 trillion bill was being deliberated,
Hmm.
and it was trending on Twitter. If you would check any of the tweets that were going viral for that trending hashtag, you would see people complaining about the fact that the bill was giving a ton of money to the big banks. And they were all
Yeah.
tweets that were from personal Twitter accounts, journo Twitter accounts, and verified Twitter journos.
Hmm.
If you look at it trending now, the only thing that Twitter is pushing under the trending hashtag are news stories regarding the fact that there was a deal reached.
Huh.
Take that as you will. Whether or not that is by mistake due to the Twitter algorithm or something is going on behind the scenes, the bill that the Republicans tried to push through
Hmm.
had only critical tweets being shown under the hashtag, and this one isn't showing almost any. There are some, They're all verified Twitter journos, but it's weighed very heavily in the favor of just reporting the straight news.
Well, Twitter, man. Like they had another thing going on regarding this whole situation where people, and I didn't read too much into it, so maybe there's more behind it. But hashtag was going around, China lied, people died,
Yep.
which is really catchy.
A lot of
And
Chinese bots are getting very angry about it. You're seeing people post screenshots of their DMs from Chinese bots.
oh god. But then there was another hashtag, Trump lied, people died. Now I don't know what specifically lied about. He did lie about a lot, but
Well, they're
uh,
specifically referring to a medication called, I think it's something chloroquine,
right, yeah, he
that
did
he
that. I
said
don't think
was
people
a
lied that
cure
much.
to the coronavirus,
Yeah,
or that it would be very big and very important.
there was a malaria. Uh,
Right. It was either a malaria or an HIV treatment. I can't remember
I think
which.
that was.
actually 2 pills
Mhm.
and both.
Yeah, the chloroquine was more prominent though because people were ingesting it. Some people, I think it might have only been less than 5 that were being
Sure,
reported.
yeah,
They were ingesting a variant of it that was a fish tank cleaner that they
Damn
had on
right.
it.
hand. But it's
Yes,
Trump's fault that they
guy died.
died because they had fish cleaner and decided to ingest it without looking at the label.
Even though,
Well,
even though
I'm not
also
buying
he was
that, but
recommended to use that because the Europeans recommended that they were using it.
I
mhm.
didn't know that.
I gotta
Yeah,
say,
I heard about it.
like it was using like big scientific words that 95% of the people can't cope with. They don't understand that. I don't understand it. And I think the other 5% don't care for it because they know better. I can't say it was a tactful tweet. But then again, what happened was that we had those two hashtags, and China lied and people died just vanished away. And Trump lied, people died was trending out of nowhere. Um,
Trending hashtags do expire after a period of time, although Twitter does occasionally kick them off for various reasons because they have that ability to do so. But they
sure.
do expire over time.
Mhm.
That's why you'll see coronavirus, and the next thing that trends will be coronavirus misspelled, because you can't have the previous coronavirus hashtag trending for too long
All
because there's
right.
always people misspelling it. So the next best one to go trending is one with one letter off, and then that
Mm.
one trends because people see it trending.
All right, that's good to know. Yeah, I don't want to get all
COVID-19 is
conspiracy
trending
about it
right now.
either.
Yeah. Well, some of them will stay trending, and then there are personal trending hashtags as well that will continue. Some of them
Uh,
are manipulated by Twitter to stay up for extended period of time.
let's actually talk a bit about
Yeah.
what the governments are doing.
Hmm.
I mean, the reaction by the internet is interesting, of course. So what has the US actually currently done? Start off with.
Who wants to answer this? I can answer it, but someone else want to answer it?
I know nothing about it.
You
Okay.
are the American here.
Yes, I am. God bless America. Well, federally, there's still no lockdown. Uh, Amazing that that's the case. We are the biggest economy in the world. Probably won't be for very long now. Different states have their different lockdown measures. One of the first states to do any sort of a lockdown was Washington State when they had, I believe, 1 or 2 deaths. They were for a while leading the US in number of deaths by state. Each and every state, like I said, has their own different lockdown policy. And now the state of New York has the highest number of official rate of infections, and they have the most stringent policies. New York City sort of operates almost like a de facto state in and of themselves, and they have their own lockdown policies that are much more strict than even New York State. New York State only has a recommended stay at home policy along with a shutdown of all non essential businesses. New York City has a mandatory stay at home and or you can't be in a group of more than X number of people. I think they've
Hmm.
changed it to 2 or more people now. It's either 2 or 5. Um, State of California, on the other hand, doesn't have a mandatory stay-at-home policy, but they are having some of their politicians threaten to shut off water and electricity to any non-essential businesses that are still staying open. Technically, non-essential businesses in California should be closed according to the law, but there are some still staying open, and they're going to threaten to turn off the water and electricity if they don't. Not
Oh
sure
God.
if that's too far or that's exactly what you need to do in order to enforce the law. I wouldn't be surprised if they make a mistake and shut off the water and electricity for people who aren't those businesses, because they're really great at mucking up anything having to do with your address.
Mm.
Power companies.
Oh, that'd be terrible.
Yeah,
Just accidentally shut down an entire block of people.
it wouldn't be
Or
the
that,
first time.
Right.
or they just live next to the laundromat and they shut you off instead of the guy.
Hmm.
And I'm seeing now some news coming out because the Senate is deliberating over the bill and seeing if they need to make any changes. Apparently, the check that's supposed to go to individuals and families is not a UBI. It is a one-time payment, unlike the Republican bill. So originally it would have been per month, and this
Hmm.
Democrat written bill is a one-time payment.
So it's a worse deal, even on the things that we would like about it.
Yeah, it's a worse deal for the Democrats, for the individual Democrats, not the Democratic Party, the ones that hate
Hmm.
giving money to corporations. And it's a worse deal for everyone, including the Republicans who wanted
Hmm.
the actual UBI implemented.
Right. Yeah. So back to those regulations on the ground. Um, uh, I don't want to stray too far off topic, but I'm endlessly mesmerized by the idea of all these states working somewhat independently. Like that's the way how gay marriage got traction, starting with one state and then expanding over the entire states. But do you think it would make more sense if this was regulated federally, like some regulation that would apply to all states, or is it better that now all states kind of figure it out themselves? What's to be done? Is that a clear question, or do you think should I elaborate?
Maybe elaborate a bit more.
Well, now all it seems like all states and all cities figuring out like, all right, we'll just try this out, and one state to the next one, the one state could be really liberal in their approach to it. Like, we'll see where it lands. Go out if you want to, maybe stay at home, but we'll see. And then another state might be really strict on their citizens, which might, negative either of them negatively. Well, maybe it would make more sense to for the US to say federally, all right, all states follow the same routine. Um, Currently, there's no federal quarantine or isolation or program, um, as I understand it. So, would you prefer this to be federally, or does it make sense for all the states to make up their own uh, rules on this?
The problem is these temporary measures, a lot of them are not going to be temporary.
Hmm.
The more you have the federal government step into this, the more centralized the authority is going to become. We're already teetering on an element of authoritarianism
Well,
that I don't
definitely,
feel
yes.
comfortable with.
And
That
word
is
has it that
the
Pelosi just declined the stimulus package again because, again, she says that it's still not enough of what they need.
Mm.
These
Even though this
people.
morning they
Nice.
just agreed that it was
Oh,
fine enough with what the Republicans came up with, but they want more established in there. So expect
More
another 1,000
diversity
plus
quotas or
page.
something.
say again. Who was trying to speak just now?
Sorry. Do they want more diversity quotas or something?
Probably.
That was part of it, right?
Yep. The Republican bill
Yeah,
didn't
I'm
include any
still
of that.
baffled by it.
Yeah.
All right.
It was
So let's talk about the authoritarianism.
sure. I wanted to say this is the classic way federal states expand.
Mm.
Cough, cough,
Yeah.
EU, cough, cough, US.
Small steps at a time.
It will be also be probably easier to fight the individual states than fight the federal government.
Yeah, personally, I find it really funny that the borders are finally closing.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
the EU can't do and normally the EU can't do anything and nothing gets done because of it. Because the member states
Mhm.
expect the EU to do it, and the EU wants to do it, but some member states say no.
Well, it's accepted sociology that um, like plagues and stuff like that turns people more conservative, right?
Yes.
I've
Yeah.
heard the claim being made.
Yeah, I haven't read the literature on that, but
It's
I heard it
Pearson
multiple
talks about
times.
he it's because like let's say for like the conquistadors coming to America, like they basically wiped them all out from smallpox and such. And he's saying that that's kind of like an integral part of being a human is that if you meet people from another part of the world that you aren't familiar with, you're more likely to get infected by their diseases, and therefore
Hmm.
you tend to be more xenophobic against them.
Right.
Yep.
Obviously, that's very basic and primitive. There's a
Mm.
lot more nuance to that. I mean, plays could come in all forms and sizes. Um, yeah, but then again, even people turning more conservative doesn't necessarily mean a more authoritarian state. You can have the individual choosing, like, guys, I'm gonna hole up in my own house for a month or so, just to keep myself safe. You can have the citizen make the decision, or you can have the state say, right, you all are going to sit in your house for a month.
I'm
Um,
not so sure we should get into what is and isn't conservatism, but
oh no, sure.
for the record, I do believe that inherently a more conservative society is a more authoritarian society.
Hmm.
If we consider that both parties, conservatives and liberals, if there's just a left right dichotomy there, if there is, they tend to be statists in the modern era. So if everybody is a
Yeah.
statist, then the conservatives will inevitably want more authority to the federal government, and
Hmm.
a more liberal mind would still support the state, but would support the state for the sake of uh, ensuring freedoms for people, even if it's corrupted and at the cost of some other freedoms and people's rights to do things.
Though this moment, a lot of people are looking towards the state to protect them from this, and maybe protect them even from their neighbors.
Can you blame them? I mean,
No,
you
no, but
can, but
well,
Of course
you
you can.
can. You should, but it makes sense because it's a pandemic that they can't control, and they see government, and they
mhm,
see government has all this power, and they think, hey, you're bigger than me, do something
mhm.
about it.
Yeah, um,
And the thing is, locking down the United States at the very least, I wouldn't say is any worse than not doing a lockdown and opening it up by Easter as Trump wants. You're still going to result in
yeah,
over 1 million people are going to die. um, the economy is still going to suffer. You can open up the economy all you want, but people are going to stay home. The supply chains are still going to be disrupted because people are going to get sick and won't be able to drive their trucks. The hospitals are still going to overflow, and other elements of the economy will crash and crumble. It doesn't
mhm,
matter how much money you print into this. Um, the the time for fixing the situation and trying to prevent spread is long since over. It's already too late.
Money
yeah,
printer goes.
So I take the stance that I don't think the federal government should do a mandatory national lockdown, simply because if they do that, they're going to get that much more powerful after after the pandemic happens, after it's
yeah.
over. They're
Because the
going to
assumption
be
is also,
significantly more centralized. It's going to be disgusting. It's going to be unrecognizable in a sense.
hmm,
The same thing
That's
happened in World War One and World War Two. The government was completely unrecognizable after each of those wars. It was unrecognizable after the Vietnam War. The Vietnam War was when the US public lost any trust for the government. The US public actually trusted the government prior to the Vietnam War,
mhm,
if you looked at polling from that time. Now, that probably wasn't a good thing. It's It's probably a good thing that they don't trust him, but it's clear that everything's trust in the institutions as a whole just began to crumble, and there's virtually no trust in the institutions now, despite the polling that shows everyone agrees with what the president is doing. I don't even trust that polling. How are they
Right. Yeah.
polling these people?
Distrust for the
They're too
government.
afraid to get out of their homes.
Well,
They'll do
I
polling over
saw
phone. A lot of it
I
over
saw that
landlines.
I saw that poll, but it was like 54 to 46, like in favor. So it's like most, like it's technically most are in favor, but you know it's essentially
Yeah.
50-50.
Yeah, and if it's essentially 50-50 and the population of the United States keeps increasing, regardless if the birth rates are dropping or not, that's still way more people that don't agree with it increasing every day. Well, not anymore, because we've closed off our borders to Europe and Mexico, but
Hmm.
that's the gist of it.
First time in history.
Yeah, you'd think that maybe we should have done it before for other reasons, but no.
Well, yeah.
No, you.
Trump is kind of being not necessarily proven right. He was just saying like, I'd like to close, some borders and bring some jobs back home. Not because he saw a virus coming at the horizon, but
Mhm.
it's still within the ballpark of the sentiment he was putting forward. Like, we need to protect our country, our economy, and all that.
And another example of not really having any trust for how the government is responding to this, the federal government.
Mhm.
They keep enacting all these restrictions and regulations putting in place to prevent the economy from collapsing, to prevent the disease from spreading. Have you
Yeah.
seen them talk about deregulating the industry at all? I mean, maybe it's not the right time to talk about it, but you're only increasing the number of regulations on businesses right now, and a lot of those are going to stay. And a
Mhm.
lot of the problem with being able to get medicine and masks is because we've exported all of our manufacturing base over to China. And I'm not seeing anything being done to fix that.
So you suggest just throw it open, maybe forget about patents for now, and just get people producing the stuff that we need.
Yeah, I mean, the government actually has the authority because the government actually owns all patents by
Hmm.
law. They have the authority to push patents into the public domain.
Right.
And they could do that if they wanted. They've done that for several things in the past. I don't remember specifically what, but it was during wartime. And they're already forcing companies to manufacture things, so why not make it even easier? There were people in Italy that were manufacturing a specific kind of tubing, I believe it
Right. I
was.
heard that. Yeah.
They were
I thought
3D
it was
printing
a
it.
gear something.
Was the gear? Okay.
I don't
Some sort
exactly
of a
remember.
machine part.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And
Their supplier couldn't deliver on time, so they had the 3D printer and figured out how to do it themselves, right?
yes,
For like 1,000 the cost.
exactly. 1/1000th of the cost, pretty much. It was for a
Yeah,
dollar.
yeah. Hmm.
Apparently, it was just a dollar out, not taking into account investment into the actual printer itself and the
Sure, but still.
very
Um,
cheaply.
and then
They
we're,
got
we're
sued for
really
that,
open
didn't they?
about it. Like, we're saving lives here. We're not looking to make a profit out of this. We're just trying to help people out here, and they're still getting sued, right?
Yeah, I think I don't know if that they are getting sued or that they've already been threatened to
Hmm.
be sued.
Right.
It's one or the other. I doubt that it's going to make it to court, frankly. I don't know how Italian courts work, but if the Italian courts are even remotely reasonable, I doubt that they're going to pick up that case.
Hmm.
They should like rule in like in the name of public interest that they do.
They should rule. They should pick up the case and rule. Yeah. What
Also in
about you?
Ireland,
Highly agree there.
I think was that our government or some suppliers here recommended that they buy face masks locally because in
Hmm.
we have a factory where we make face masks in Clare. But the thing is that they were buying them from outside, and they were selling them for like 150 euro, like a pack of face masks. I think
Damn.
it's
Yeah,
really ridiculous. Yeah,
here, things like firework glasses, safety glasses, and stuff have been sold to hospitals.
Mhm.
Yeah, a
Yeah.
friend of a friend, or a friend of mine said a friend of his made like a bunch of money off that. He had 2,000 of those. Don't know why.
Nice. Hmm. The government is also the U.S. government is looking to propose uh, during this whole thing anti-gun bills and anti-encryption bills because for some
Yeah, I saw the
reason,
letter.
I think I was the Attorney General, the guy named Barr, is super against all forms of encryption and wants a
Hmm.
backdoor in everything for the federal government to look into to prevent all sorts of illegal activity.
Right, and that encryption was, I think, most directly targeting places like Facebook and WhatsApp to get access to messaging services, right?
Right.
Yeah, you should
Um,
need a
And
warrant
telephone.
for that signed by a judge.
Yeah.
well, as Snowden already revealed, like they kind of get around that.
Yeah,
What they're
they
currently
do.
doing, as I understand it, what the NSA does is just collect everything, but then they just have a full archive of everything ever said, or at least a lot of stuff that's being sent around, and then they need a warrant to actually access it. But at that point, they already have it archived, and then
Well,
they have an
you
archive
should
of
need
years of
a
you talking shit.
warrant. You should need a
Mhm.
warrant to actually wiretap a house, not to listen
Absolutely,
to the
Of course.
wiretap.
I think
absolutely.
there is an element of respect for the principle of the law that has been lost. The words that are on the page are important, but the government can technically get a warrant for basically anything if a judge that is in agreement with a government's ruling needs a warrant. It's not very difficult for them to get a warrant. It's you call them up on the phone and like, can I have a warrant for this? And they're like, yeah, sure.
Mhm.
It's not hard to do that.
Still,
The
there
real
should
thing
be,
is
it should be
people in the
annoying
government
for them.
should have principles because the people in the government should only be those that are appointed either by the people or they come from an establishment that respects the people. And they don't. They simply don't. Because most departments of the United States government are federally appointed by previous presidents and stick around, sort of like the Canadian Senate. They're just leftovers and an establishment that has been around for decades. That's why they're the shadow government, the deep state.
Mhm.
Hmm.
And it's just like um, they're I think they be almost celebrating with something like this because big events that take the headlines already give cover for shady policies to get pushed through.
Oh,
Like
constantly.
they get put on the third page of the paper. Nobody sees it. Nobody knows about it. But now they don't only have that. They can also argue, yeah, but we're doing this because we want to fight the virus. Same with 9/11 and the Patriot Act. Just like, guys, you want to be safe, right? So we better enforce this regulation. Whatever kind of shit story they attach to it, which,
That kind of reminds me, slightly related, that there was like a conspiracy theory that people said that the CIA killed Michael Jackson because around the same time he died was the Egyptian Revolution. I
oh,
don't know,
Arab Spring.
something like that. Yeah,
All right, let's uh let's schedule another
yeah, but
podcast for
no,
that
but like
one.
even though that was probably not true, but like yeah, definitely things like that have happened. Because like when I
Hmm.
heard that like the government were putting in like kind of draconian bills through, I was like, of course they are. Like it's a perfect opportunity to do that. Like right now, wherever like the only thing on the news right now is Corona, Corona, Corona.
Right. The biggest conspiracy I've heard on this one, I think, is that they do it to cover up all the pedophile scandals going on in Hollywood, and because seemingly that's something also going on right now. I heard something about Tom Hanks, Oprah Winfrey, and whoever all being implicated. There was a documentary out on that subject, and seemingly a lot of people are supposed to go to court right now. So it all correlates, but yeah, I don't see much reason to go very deep into that. Um,
Like you think Hollywood conspired with China to make a bioweapon so they can get rid
yeah,
of
I don't know,
pedophilia.
man. Seems just a little bit far fetched. Um, but yeah, those fucking but not just anti-gun. They even have prohibition bills, right? They wanted to make alcohol illegal for whatever the fuck reason. I don't know what the idea was behind that, but I saw the go.
Probably to go after pubs, maybe so people don't go to pubs anymore. But like
Where?
that's literally
I'm sure would have to look it up. It was like one bill doing several things at once.
Where and when was this?
It was in the U.S. somewhere,
You're
but it
talking
was
about the
for
prohibition in the US, or
no,
is
no,
that
no.
a
I'm
new?
not. I'm not in the 1920s. I'm talking about the currently, right now. They were pushing an anti-guns bill and also an anti-alcohol bill. Um,
I doubt that an anti-alcohol bill will be able to get through. The alcohol
right,
industry is a
there as
lot
well.
bigger than it was back then.
Mm-hmm.
The real question is, have they consulted the priests? You know,
Well,
I'm
they're
only
probably.
sort of joking. I'm reading Russian news right now about coronavirus, and it's
Mhm.
mostly interviews with priests,
Hmm.
and supposedly one of them made the water from a foreign country so it doesn't have virus anymore.
Oh, that's
that's
great.
nice.
Hey,
I
Praise
mean,
him.
magic.
yeah, I think it would be pretty interesting to hear about Russia.
No, nothing happening.
I think I need to
I'm
convert
reading
to
news.
Russian
It's mostly
Orthodoxy.
interviews of priests, and
Mhm.
mayor of Moscow promising subsidies. That's pretty much everything that happens.
I think I
What?
need to convert to Russian Orthodoxy.
Just you wait. They will also subsidize the church. That's what they do every time anything happens.
Great.
I did see a video too of a uh, basically a helicopter church, just
Yes,
a
I saw that as
priest
well.
in
He
Spain
he
or
ju-
something.
no no, I think it's in Russia, or at least someone in Russia did it as well. Like a priest, like he loaded up a helicopter with a bunch of icons, and I think some sacraments, and just flew over this town that was being badly hit with. And there was also like videos in America of this guy, and so this priest. So because like the churches are closed, this priest jumped on the back of a man's truck with the sacrament in hand, tied himself to the truck, and then he was driven around the church like the Pope,
Oh God.
blessing the whole town.
Hmm.
I know this all sounds all foreign to you, but in my native city, we literally have a patch of road that they make holy. They drip holy water on it every few months
Hmm.
to stop
That's
people
crazy.
from dying there. That's normal in Russia. But if we're talking about coronavirus, it's mostly
Yeah.
there's no federal lockdown. For example, my place of work, which is a private company, they issued a private lockdown. So if you don't want to go to job, you can stay at home, and that's what most companies did. And the government just kind of subsidizes everything they can. In the meantime, there's nothing literally being done.
the The Russian government can only afford so much. They're a medium-sized economy, and they've been sort of in a state of recession for a long period of time.
We hit a lot of we hit recession recently. Ruble jumped from 50 for $1 to 80 for $1.
Oh wow.
Yeah, about 30% jump.
Hmm.
That's because oil prices got dumped.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah,
there's
that was the recent dump from the OPEC situation,
I,
or
I,
is that just
if
generally recently?
I'm right, correct me on this if I'm wrong, but there's a conflict between Russia and Saudi Arabia about oil. Like
Uh-huh.
Russia not uh, not lowering its production, so they decided to pump a bunch of oil on the market or something.
I'm not really informed about it because I tend not to read or listen to Russian news. It's a dribble pretty much.
That's true.
You can't trust a word they say.
You're right on that, though, York. OPEC is, I forgot exactly what that stands for, but they're oil producing companies that produce probably, I think it's something like 70% of the oil, some obscene number in the world. And Russia and Saudi Arabia were having a spat at an OPEC meeting, and they couldn't agree on the level of production in order to keep the prices stable. So Saudi Arabia said, you know what, we're just going to start increasing production dramatically, and we don't care about you, which causes the oil prices to plummet.
That already happened
Luckily,
in 2014.
yeah, that happened in 2014. It happens regularly, but it doesn't usually happen this quickly and not during a global pandemic. Sort of
Mm.
beneficial for the airlines, though, because they're still going to crumble, but they're going to crumble
Hmm.
slowly and maybe not quite as bad, despite the fact that American Airlines has cut down their number of flights to three, I think, only three destinations:
Yeah, like London,
London,
Frankfurt or
Dallas,
something.
Tokyo, and one other one.
Did you hear about the crazy EU regulation, which seemingly requires airlines to keep certain routes within their flight plan? Like, just keep flying those routes, otherwise, they lose access to those routes. So, what currently
What do you mean by
uh,
access?
Is this regulation? I thought you were that's like the landing spots of the airports, just the way it's. Uh, I don't know if the reason why
as
they do that is regulation, but
as I understood it, the airlines had to keep flying those airplanes, otherwise they'd lose those spots. So they, even
yeah,
if
the
airplanes were
landing
empty,
slots.
yeah,
Landing
they just
slots.
so they were just flying empty planes because they knew if we don't do this, then we'll lose those spots or slots or whatever they're called, and that'll be tougher on us in the long term. We don't
Can
want to
you
lose those spots.
explain what you mean by slots?
I think just
Like
places where they can land. I think
as
time
far
within
as
a
I
time frame in a certain space.
as far as I know, for example, Heathrow, you buy a 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. landing slot, basically where you can.
So, so let me get this straight.
Yeah,
Does that mean that the industry of airlines is government controlled and they simply have to purchase flight
No, like
plans?
allocated landing slots have commercial value, can be traded between airlines.
Yeah, but who manages that? How do
IATA,
you lose a
International
slot?
Air Transport Association. Don't know that's
Okay, so if you
regulation.
lose a slot, that means that the government of the EU can determine that you can no longer use it, even if it was traded from one airline company to yours. They
that's
can
as I
just say you
understood it.
can't use it. Well, that's amazing.
Um,
In the United States, we do have mandatory flight travel plans, but I
mm,
don't think we have any sort of a system like that where you lose access to a plane. We do have an
oh,
element of like a light touch of federalization after the Kennedy administration in the 60s, but it's still very much private with a lot of regulations in it. And there are small flights that cost the airline money at the end of the flight because they're mandatory.
mm,
I don't know if those are still running though. I wouldn't
I
be
mean,
surprised if they've been put on hold.
even if they kept their planes on the ground, obviously they're using tons of money.
Yeah.
But just something that this situation sparks something. Well, we just didn't know about, but that there will be an incentive for airlines to just keep flying empty planes um, in a climate where the EU is really concerned about the climate is crazy. Um,
Mm.
like as I read it, and I might be wrong here, but it seemed like the air traffic wasn't really lessened, even though a lot of people, well, most people stopped actually using those planes.
Yeah, to
They were
use
flying it without people?
Heathrow as
Yeah,
to use Heathrow as an example, I think now it probably no longer is the case because I think
I hope
right some
so.
of the EU airlines like KLM and stuff, British one also we fly to destination.
Mm.
I think Wendover made a video about it. Of course, planes. Won't somebody think of the planes?
Right.
Oh no, the airline companies that charge you a fortune in order to take on a bag that's 2 pounds over the limit. Oh no, those
This-
guys are going under. Oh no. I can't feel bad about the airline industry. I really
No.
can't. I can feel bad
Um,
about people who rely on the airline industry to make money, but man, no.
Well,
feels to me
Russia
like that
already
entire.
subsidized those.
We're going to be subsidizing those as well.
Yeah, Putin
Yeah.
passed a bill where he first thing he did is subsidize tourist companies and airline companies. Oh,
Tourist
and now
companies?
there's
Oh well,
tourism
sure.
company.
Yeah. Hmm.
Those already struggling in Russia where everybody just goes to Greece and gets burned.
Hmm.
So they need a lot of money.
Yeah, like I remember hearing that in Greece they actually sell giant, really big Russian fur coats because all the Russians that go in Greece.
Amazing.
Also in Russia, when coronavirus first broke out, one of the first recipients, the woman who was tested positive,
Hmm.
she ran from Russian clinic to her house.
Of course.
She just jumped out of the window and ran to her
Oh
house.
God, that's intense. Did they recapture her after that?
Yes, they recaptured her, but she probably infected people on the way.
Oh, that's no good. That's not good. But still,
Funny
do
though.
you?
It's really funny.
That's
Yeah.
normal.
But do you think the government is underrepresenting the amount of cases there, or is it likely that Russia is really not that affected?
I'm two minds about it. At first, I of course cannot trust Russian official statistics.
Hmm.
They never tell anything even close to truth. According to current statistics, there's about only 600 people being infected,
Yeah, that
and for
seems.
Russia, that's incredibly low.
Hmm.
On the other hand, who the hell goes to Russia of all places?
Yeah.
When you plan your vacation, do you plan to go to Arkhangelsk, Novosibirsk? Of
No,
course not.
the Jewish Autonomous Oblast.
Maybe there, where there's no Jews left.
Oof.
And
True.
in winter, so yeah,
Well, in
it
my
does make
native
sense.
village, it's still snowing in the end of March. So no, not many people go here on vacation. So it's understandable that we're not getting insane amount of infected.
Well,
I mean, not for nothing though. I'm finding you delightful in all the right ways.
so as opposed to Russia and the US, we actually do have a couple of countries within the EU or within Europe. I shouldn't just say the EU. Feel terrible for doing that. We
Ooh.
we have a couple countries within Europe, um, uh, which are France and Belgium, who have enforced isolation, where you really, if you want to go out on the street, you got to bring your paper with you or any other kind of, um, well, you gotta tell the cops why you are leaving your home, what your purpose is on the street. Otherwise, you might get fined. I don't know if there are other countries besides Belgium and France, but they are enforcing that heavily. Um, and who's to say that it might not even up it even more than that? I mean, at what point are governments going to say, you know what, let's just never let you leave your house for the next 3 months or so. Just have your food delivered, and that'll be that.
They're
And
gonna
it might,
subsidize that too. Food delivery, that's pretty expensive.
I don't know how they, if they are subsidizing anything in France. I
Well,
would think so.
from what I heard here, weren't they like willing to spend a big chunk of national, well, yearly income on the problem?
Hmm. I would assume they would. Yeah, you were saying?
I was, I said that,
All right.
Did,
but
did you guys did
yeah.
you guys see the video of it was this guy, I think he was drunk or something. He was outside during quarantine, and like this worker or something. I think he
Mm.
called the police, but he's like shouting out and saying to go back indoors. And then the cops show up, and then in like a cop car, the cops get out and walk behind the guy. And then one of the cops just sweep his leg underneath him, and the guy lands face first into the fucking ground. And then they
Jesus.
arrest him. Yeah,
All right.
so they're not
Well,
taking a shit with the whole quarantine thing.
well, the French already had their fun, like these yellow jackets to the ground.
Yeah,
So,
that finally stopped now. I guess they're happy with that. I
well,
mean,
yeah.
originally here the 100 people limit our government first put in. It didn't include demonstrations because those are not considered gatherings. They
Seriously,
yeah, yeah.
that's
Although
so stupid.
no, yeah, but nobody did it because why would you? No, and
Well,
nobody's gonna show up. But technically, you were allowed to do it. I don't know about
uh-huh.
now. They tightened the measures here, so now you're only allowed to invite 3 people in your house. Else you get a 450 or €400 fine, I think.
Mhm.
Companies can get a €4,000 fine.
Yeah,
They call it a smart lockdown, which is just a marketing term, of course.
yeah. It doesn't say anything in and of itself. I think it differentiates itself with an enforced lockdown because it's like, hey guys, it's not really entirely a lockdown. It's not really entirely social segregation, but we're really closing in on that. Like last week, it was you can come together if the event or whatever is under 100 people, like you said, and then just within a week it jumped to like you can't even be with 3 people next to each other on the street.
Yeah, they gave local municipalities the power to uh, put laws in their uh, municipality rule book, basically, like stuff like you can drink in this street or no happy hour, stuff like that,
Hmm.
or no open bottles of alcohol. I meant.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and that shows how fast something like that can go. Because
Yes,
they might
and
just, throw in another regulation next week.
exactly, like tomorrow could be completely different. First they did nothing, then they did a bit. Now they go a bit further. It's the same with the schools. First they said no, we're gonna keep them open. Then they said, okay, we're gonna close the universities, but not uh, basically like the lower education, the skills.
Hmm.
We're gonna keep that open. We're gonna keep high schools open, elementary schools open. Then they passed a motion to temporarily suspend compulsory attendance, so no fines, basically. Then they uh, closed the schools except for if you have a job in a vital career,
Hmm.
stuff like hospital, food delivery. So it literally changes every 2 days, and you need to read like 2 pages of text to understand what exactly is happening.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if they're working towards something. If they're like, all right, when we hit, I don't know, 50% of the population safely within their houses and the other 50% maybe wanders around still, that's fine.
Maybe
Um,
I know they currently are saying that the infection rate has dropped below 1%, so every 1%
all
infects
right.
less or 1%,
Hmm.
which is what they are claiming. If you want to believe them, they could be wrong, they could be right. Who knows?
Yeah, at some point, it's not even if I believe them. It's like, you know, do you have the resources to actually know this? Um, is there something you're overlooking here? Uh, So yeah, here's hoping that they're right. Um,
What I feel about this is kind of like I got one opinion where like you could just go full on crackdown and that would get rid of like the virus,
mm,
but who's to say the government would seize their powers? You know, which is which would be interesting to see which countries go first to shout at the government to get rid of the laws that they enacted like after the crisis gone down, or if any, you know, because like does America still have the Patriot Act? Like,
Yes.
Yep.
yes.
yeah, so
Yes,
be
it
interesting to
does.
see after all this.
Mm. Obviously, the Patriot Act is less visible than something like this. Less visible than a curfew, let's say.
Yep.
It's just something that's being done by the secret, spooky government agencies.
The
And
Patriot
we,
Act is for collecting information and doesn't have anything to
yeah.
do. Well, it has some things like no fly lists, but that's about it.
Well, obviously, the regulations in airports have only been more stringent over the years. Even now, they're still becoming even more strict. So that's definitely changed our society. And we just accepted that within 20 years. We're like, all right, guess this is how airports function now. And
They kind of like we got rid of Saddam, we got rid of Bin Laden, you basically got rid of Al Qaeda, yet the Patriot Act is still in. It kind of reminds me of like perhaps what the attitude is towards a type of person like in 1984 when someone in
Mhm.
Oceania is like, yeah, we're at war. It's just how it is. Yeah, we have curfews. This
Sure.
is how it is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like that's probably me being super pessimistic. Is like, yeah, you can't go outside certain times, but public safety. Even though it's the year
Mhm.
2013, Corona's not around. But like that's just my dire opposition towards the government.
Well, the
Because
Great
like
Depression lasted for about 10 years, and yet most of those policies that were put in place during then are still around. So,
Yeah, and it's also the social conditioning that comes with something like this because now it's real easy for government to just ease in all these regulations. Let's do this. Like Jörg just pointed out, like, from day to day, just more authoritarian, more strict regulations. And then you actually get to live like now currently or smart, what do you call it? Smart isolation lasts to the 1st of June. Maybe in May they revise and let's go to August. Let's go to September, October. We'll go from there, and then you're sitting isolated with maybe a curfew for half a year, and then people adapt that quickly. They're like, yeah, I kind of forgot how it was before this. This is just like the social norm right now.
it like well, I think it could be go from like you had to stay indoors, but Corona is out there. You had to stay in home
Mm,
because there's some pockets of it throughout the country, when the flare up again.
right.
And then it goes, we don't, so we know that the plague is gone, but we don't know if it's still around. So
Hmm.
everyone these laws have to stay in, which is just a cover to be, all a crack and shit. It's just, it's also just the slow build up of temperature. Because you ever heard like you put a frog in water and if you
Yeah.
turn out all the way up, it jumps out. But if you keep up the temperature real slowly, you eventually just boil the frog and everyone else's.
Right. Right. And also, the genius move they could do is like really have enforced isolation. Then after say half a year, you turn it down a little bit. Say like, see, at least you can go on the street right now. But we got to keep these regulations going on because you don't want to get back to the scenario before, right? You're happy that you can still go on the street now, right? Even though we have more police, we have a curfew, we have still you still have to keep like still can't congregate with more than 3 people. But at least you can go on the street right now. So let's just keep to these regulations. Otherwise, we gotta have to isolate you again. Um,
In the name of public safety.
oh, absolutely, yeah. So yeah, I could see this being lasting policy for a plenty long time. Also, looking at finding not just we say it, not just prevention of infection, but actually a solution to looking at vaccines. Those will, at earliest estimation, roll out or go into production early 2021, which is actually pretty quick. I think
Mm.
SARS took them 5 years. Or am I totally getting the disease wrong? Maybe. But they were comparing it to another pretty recent virus, which they developed rather quickly a vaccine for, but it still took them 5 years. So currently, laboratories are saying maybe we can have it by early 2021, which would be great. And then actually, that really takes away the power of the fear mongering government can do, because then we're saying like, we're vaccinated, fuck off with your curfew.
Yeah.
There are no pockets anymore. So there's hoping for that, but yeah, I don't think I think you'd be justified in thinking a bit pessimistic about something like this, because it's not just government doing this, it's also people just condoning it at some point. It's like, like you said, there's a war going on, we're under terror,
War
we're,
on for your mind.
all right. Like, this money will be going where?
Yep. It's a new one or what? Yeah, that's the one that the Democratic Party is working on, that they wrote basically.
Hmm.
The one with the diversity and inclusion initiatives.
All right.
It's just a worse bill than it's a worse bill than the one the Republicans put forward, and the Republican one was already getting even people like Rashida Tlaib were supporting Trump's decisions in this.
Hmm.
She was supporting it, and yet
That
for
says
some
something.
reason, you know, some activists wouldn't be surprised if it was Sunrise Rebellion or Media Matters decided to get in the mix there and say, "Hey, this is a great opportunity to push something that we want to push."
Oh, fucking terrible.
Yeah.
And also, point was also made, you gotta get something like this done really quickly. Not
Yeah.
every week counts, every day counts at this point, because if you're gonna bail out some people, if you're gonna say, all right, here's, I don't know, 1,000 a month or whatever you're gonna do for them, they need it now. They need to pay their rent by the end of the month.
Right.
And if they can't pay it this month, then likely a lot of people will just have to leave their house this month, and then it'll be way costlier to get them back on their feet again. So they basically got to roll it out this very week.
It's worth noting that some states have already put in some measures regarding, and federally, regarding eviction. Federally, if your house is managed by Freddie May or Freddie Mac, whatever, however you
Mm,
say, those guys were some of the companies responsible for the 2008 financial crisis,
yeah,
the housing crisis, because they were giving low interest loans to people that could not pay them back, and the whole system collapsed. So the federal government set up a task force that basically doesn't manage them, but it tells them what to do and it keeps track of what they're doing. Trump issued a decree that that task force will keep that company from foreclosing anybody's homes
all right.
during the crisis, during a national emergency specifically. And several states have already instituted things like you can't be evicted from your home if you can't afford it because of not being able to go to work, et cetera, et cetera.
That's
They're all
great.
temporary measures. The state of New York one is, I think, 90 days. I think there's only about 5 or 6 states so far that have put that system in place. But for how long can it go on?
Sure. It's worth noting in this context that I think home ownership is a lot more prevalent in the US than maybe in European countries. So here I'm thinking of
would
who do I know who actually owns a home, and obviously
Yeah,
in the
here
states it's
here a,
always
t-
pretty low, but
a third or something is social housing.
mhm. Well,
I
but then they're
don't
also in
know,
hands of a state.
like Orange Team. Does Ireland have a lot of council houses, or however you call it?
Um, Considering a homeless crisis, I would say so. A lot of it is just they're kind of not built to be council houses. Whenever there's like a housing project, a certain percentage of it is given over to the local council, and then that's just given over to the people. But
Here they're forced to put a certain amount of houses aside for public
yeah, it's the same
operation.
here. But like with the whole here, they actually I think they freeze evictions, and considering housing is like a major issue here, and also with like I remember I saw on Twitter for America that is they gave it like trillions to like corporations and such, and they're like, oh, they can give that to corporations, but they can't give it to like Green New Deals and shit like that. And I'm like, so I'm thinking, so the new these people have like a new perception of the government. It's like they say they can't do that, they say they won't do that, but they can do other things. And I feel like I don't know what's going, but I don't know what's going to happen. But I worry about what they may think and do. It's kind of like the czar saying, "Oh, we can't feed the people," while he spends hundreds of thousands on a new crown or something like that.
yeah.
It feels
Let them
sort of
eat
like
the
that.
cake.
To their
Hmm.
I mean, that's just kind of how it is. The second bill spent something like $30 million for the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. Why does the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts need that? They don't. They have the money because they can spend it because the government runs on debt. And someone sees that and they're like, if they can spend the money on the performing arts, why can't they just give everybody money?
Hmm.
It's like, well, yeah, they in effect they can give as much money as they want to anyone and they just choose not to do it. Depending on where you put it will affect the market in different ways, but I highly doubt that the people that are writing these bills really care that much. It's $30 million. That's quite a lot of money.
That's a
Take into
bunch.
account how many people that are on food stamps. $30
Hmm.
million can basically fund food stamps for like a month or two. I don't know the exact number.
Well, and
You
luckily,
can't give it to 30 million Americans $1 million each. That's not how that works. If we
uh,
all recall that tweet.
oh
mhm.
fuck yeah, oh my god.
Basic mathematics, a little bit too hard for him.
For anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about, what was his name?
Bloomberg.
Bloomberg. So
Yeah.
Bloomberg spent 300 million on his campaign, and they said, "Oh well, there's 300 million in the U.S. and if if he gave out all his money to every American would have $1 million. If
All three other
if you
people living
don't
in the U.S.
get the actual number will be like $3.16 to every
Mhm.
American,
Just
and he would
3
actually have to
million,
get
not 3 million million.
yeah it would be like 500 trillion actually if he actually spent no yeah trillion to give to every American if they had $1 million. So
Will be a bunch.
Quite a lot.
the
Well,
people of Bernie Twitter page actually retweeted that. I was like, yeah, see, Bloomberg could have gave everyone $1 million, and it was like, no, stop it, take it down. You're perpetuating the lie that leftists can't do math or some shit like that. I quote.
but let's be happy that actually our
Lie.
governments are able to. Well, let's be happy governments actually are able to release those amounts of money. But I think a lot of other tweets I saw as well, and ideas going around is that the claim that, oh, they can spend all this money, so why can't they do um, affordable or healthcare? What is it? Healthcare for all.
Yeah,
Why can't they do universal basic income? Why can't they do this and this and this and that? Free college and all that. But it should also be noted that they can splurge for a couple months, but it doesn't mean that they can do it indefinitely. So,
Yep.
and I really doubt that even if they put out a lot of money to help people out of debt or at least keep them afloat, I think they can maybe do it for a couple months. I'm thinking 3 months is probably already a big stretch, and I don't think this is
Every
gonna last for half a year.
every year Congress meets. I think it's every year. It's either every year or every few years. Congress meets to decide what the deficit limit will be.
Hmm.
And every time they will extend it, because if they didn't extend it, then we would default on our debt, and that would be the end of fun for a while.
Hmm.
Um,
And they
Based
basically
on the current
blame the
rates,
president.
Social Security debt, the debt for the Social Security program, the interest on that debt is going to exceed that of all national debt in like 30 years.
Fuck.
So our system's already not affordable. And
Hmm.
now we've just printed a whole bunch of money and you're just moving the timetable. At a certain point, you have to pay your debts. Some people are estimating that the debt to GDP ratio needs to be similar to that of Greece when they defaulted. And that will happen in like 30 to 40 years,
Hmm.
especially if our GDP, according to, oh, what was it? It was some banker dude. I don't think it was Bernanke, it was someone else. That our GDP this quarter is going to be either cut in half or it's going to be a negative 34% GDP growth. It's not sustainable. And the entire world relies on the US dollar. So
Hmm.
we go, everyone else goes with us. And
Yeah,
I think
that's
that
not
might be
good.
kind of China's plan if they were planning this from the beginning.
Hmm.
I mean, China has been trying to replace the US dollar as the global currency of exchange for a while, and they haven't been able to do that because we have the dollar. But they've been trying to make this opportunity with the Belt and Road Initiative by getting countries to sign it and signing up for a debt construction program where you give us money and we'll build your things for you. And the only country, as far as I'm aware, in Europe that signed it was Italy. Guess which country in Europe China sent over 1 million masks to?
Right.
Italia.
Italy. It's, whether or not they release this intentionally, they're still going to use this to their advantage. I can't necessarily blame them for trying to use it to their advantage, but China caused this pandemic, and we should all blame China.
Hmm.
Yep.
Do you
Yep.
think there's also, because I could see, like, let's assume that we at least survive. Um, like you state, this could be really beneficial for China, like massively, like them becoming the global superpower and all that.
Yep.
But um, if we come, the rest of us come out of this somewhat stable, somewhat living. I could also imagine this being terrible for China in a sense that we say like, guys, fuck you all. We're gonna, put our businesses, make our businesses local again. We gotta close our
Right.
borders a
I
little
love
bit
that.
in several ways, um, and kind of forget about you. So let's keep the imports and exports to China at a minimum, and leave you guys to your own device. And I'm guessing that wouldn't be too good for them.
No, it would not be good for them.
Then again, that would also mean that we have to uh, re well change our entire governments because they're really into the entire globalist idea of free trade and all the beautiful neoliberal values that come with it. But um,
There
I'm
was an
guessing.
article
uh,
in Medium talking about the Amazonification of the planet, in that because these small businesses aren't essential and because they don't have the
mhm,
ability to stay up, Amazon is going to come out on top of this, having a greater share of the market than ever before.
mhm,
So even if people are like, "Oh, you start building local businesses now," is Amazon going to do anything about that? Because Amazon doesn't rely on small businesses. Amazon relies on big businesses sending them things so that they can distribute them. So Amazon's going to keep that going unless Jeff Bezos himself says, you know what, we're going to start a small business program where we're going to give some sort of benefits to small businesses that provide us products to distribute to people. Now, that'd be great, but I doubt he's going to do that.
Yeah, I won't put my faith in Bezos. Yeah, that it's gonna probably be the hardest on all those small businesses, all those people um, living month to month, not just individuals, but all these
Where
companies that are, um, you know, starting up or small in scale, uh, get just overtaken by those who can sit it out, even if it costs them a lot. It doesn't cost them all.
a lot of things will be probably be unrecognizable. Government, airlines, even etiquette.
Mm,
I mean, here in the newspapers, they were like, yeah, should we ban the handshake? I'm
oof.
handshakes like I like the handshake.
Mhm.
I don't do it now, I guess, but
Been shaking hands for
it's
1,000
fine.
years, like
Yeah,
Well,
Well,
I'm
random
guessing.
handshake. That's exactly what I mean. Where they say like you can't do that thing because it undermines the state or is for public safety or for public health. You can't shake hands anymore because what if you're going to spread the disease that hasn't been discovered yet? It kind of sounds sort of like that where the perpetual paranoia within a society that just reinforces the authoritarianism of the state. You
no
know,
one actually wants to do it. That's the important part.
that's the
Like
important thing.
I,
Yeah, but up
I,
until when
I,
people are
um,
scared not to do it, you know, whereas like, oh, maybe I shake hands because what if Corona starts again?
I had to quickly find a temp job because my other job stopped because of virus, and so I had to meet a bunch of people, of course, as you would. And
Mhm.
every time it was awkward, like, or they would forget, or I would almost forget. It's so ingrained. I've practiced this a lot. Okay, I've got this down. Don't take it away from me.
Yeah, but that will
Social
change.
interactions are
That
difficult enough,
that'll change quickly. Um, no, I'm
and
really
they
fucking old.
shouldn't.
I remember when the euro was, and everybody, especially old people, were panicking. I'll never be able to understand, never be able to calculate prices in the euro. I'll never be know something because I'm accustomed to we had a gulden here in the Netherlands. People were freaking out over that. Within a year, everybody was adapted to the euro and what they could expect from it, how it works, because
I
it's a big thing.
haven't really heard
Mhm.
it except in situation. Well, people used to how do you say it? Count it back, like convert it back, basically.
Yeah, we
Mm-hmm.
did
Like
it
for
for over a
example, you
year.
have uh, some French fries, and you say, okay, that's
Mm.
€2. Holy shit, that's 8 gulden. I can't believe this.
It was usually
Basically,
double.
every
Yeah,
dad and mom in the Netherlands.
but I'm thinking that's such a big thing. I mean, you do so many things with calculating prices, coming up with whatever, knowing where you want to go to eat, knowing what's all right to buy, knowing what not. I mean, money plays a big role in people their lives and make a lot of decisions based on that. So making a big change like that, can be devastating and can put people totally out of order. But I felt like people um, adapted to that within a year or so. Like we did those calculating back to our original currency from the new currency for a year, and then we kind of got something like a handshake. I think in a couple months we'll all be touching toes and doing stuff like that. and all the other kinds of things that come along with the new regulations. We'll adapt to it.
Nah.
I don't know, man. I think people
Fuck
adapt
it,
real quick to that shit.
Not me.
Get those feet kickings going.
I've spent 20 years already on practicing shaking hands. I've got it down to perfect technique. They're not gonna take this away from me.
Well, Corona will take it away from you.
Corona will take your breath away.
Oh my god.
Well, I'm a smoker, so risk category.
Guys, we tell you something.
Hmm.
Well, my mom, she doesn't know if it's true or not, but she showed me like a tweet that says Chinese state media says coronavirus started from Italy. It already existed in Europe before its outbreak in China,
It's
Yeah,
the US's
they
fault. It's Italy's
also,
fault.
yeah.
It's everyone else but us.
according to the Daily Mail. According to Chinese media, that
Well,
Daily
China
Mail
can say
reported
whatever
on
they
it.
want.
But like, really?
Italy, of all places. They think that they have the ability to create diseases. They're eating too much pasta. Pasta, didn't you know it cures all wounds?
China said for 2 months that there was nothing going on there.
And news
Yeah.
from Italy also retweeted as well. So like, I wonder how far that going to go. I wonder if the WHO, like the WHO and World Health Organization,
Yeah,
that
the
they're
great band, yeah.
yeah, that's not to say that they're kind of paid by China. Imagine they start saying, well, you don't know if it started in Italy or not. And at that point, the whole world's going, what the fuck? No, disband, please.
Well, a couple weeks ago, China made the claim that they had no new infections. How do you say it? No new infected within their borders, and now we're hearing all kinds of stories that an evolved virus. I don't know how you say that.
A strain.
Another strain of the virus
Future virus.
is going around, and people who were infected and overcame corona now get infected again with a new one.
If
Um,
you look at if you aggregate all news stories regarding different strains, you'll see that there was allegedly 6 strains,
all right.
2 of which were confirmed by the WHO as early as late February. One in particular was the strain that was ripping through Iran, the one that was
Mm,
causing people to just fall dead on the streets.
that's some
The
good.
licking virus.
Yeah. So, you know, no one knows what's going on because the WHO
Mm,
is lying to us all.
yeah.
If you look,
And not
there's a new piece of information that's been coming around lately showing that cell phone companies in China, they link your account to your government issued ID. And they're not going to cancel it likely unless you no longer have a national ID, which is unlikely. And China's been reporting that there aren't new cases and that there aren't tons of new deaths. And yet the cell phone company statistics are showing that over 2 or 3 million accounts were deleted. And
Yeah,
this is
and
after they've kicked out foreign journalists.
the most likely way to lose your ID, as you alluded to, is just simply by dying. Yeah, that was like a really productive 4chan thread, I think, right? Where they went over
Yeah.
the numbers and calculated it all together. We're like, yeah, maybe we're talking about millions dead. I mean, they even came to a number above 10, I think. I don't know how much that holds up, but
Yeah. I mean, the based on the current statistics and the current rates, by early July, there's going to be over 2 billion people infected. And in the United States alone, honestly, it's a low number. It's like maybe not too bad. Not
mm,
too bad. Maybe 2 million people dead in the United States alone. So we're not looking at like some sort of it's a pandemic, everybody stay inside, just calm down, everything's going to be fine.
uh,
No, we're not looking at that.
it's pretty intense.
It's very intense.
How are you guys prepped?
at all.
I've got about 3 months worth of food. It's not enough because
That's
to
a
be
bunch.
prepared for this, you'd need probably 4 years worth of food.
That's farming.
Yeah, no, it's having a farm, being able to own land in the current.
I'm putting my hopes on the vaccine in 2001.
Yeah.
No,
What
21.
if we don't get it by then?
I don't fucking know. I mean, I don't even know if we're still gonna have to have the quarantine, the isolation beyond June. I think we're already at a point where like we don't know what the fuck we can even do at this point. What economy do we have left at that point?
Mm.
People will be through their reserves, I think, by June, if they even had anyone to begin with. I'm not talking foods, just financial.
Yeah, yeah. Like, no. That's at that point the government would have to step in and give people, if not money, then just food.
Yeah,
I mean, bread lines are going to be a real possibility. We
Oh
don't
boy, yeah.
know how our infrastructure is going to hold up because we've never had this sort of ability to create this much food ever in human history.
Mm.
We simply didn't have the infrastructure built during the Great Depression. So now we
It,
have it. Will it hold up?
it would really test the story of lakes of milk and mountains of cheese analogies that people made during the EU.
I can't
Because
believe
like,
people are actually stocking up on eggs. Like, my God, we have more than enough eggs in the world, and
the
you're
fucking
stocking up on something that's
can
only going to last a week and a half. I'm like, stop.
yeah.
the fucking canned food sections in my local supermarket are untouched. Like, for fuck's sake.
Seriously?
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
That's
There's like a
crazy.
pile of baked beans in cans, just like about six like layers of them, unfucking touched. Like, are
Just
you
get
fucking
Same in
serious?
Russia. They just buy grains. That's it.
That's retarded. Just get beans and rice, and you know,
Yeah.
you'll be right. Well, it wouldn't be too bad to have some.
Honey, even take honey. Honey doesn't go off for fuck's sake.
Yeah,
Yeah.
honey tastes good as well.
In my
An
supermarket,
anti
we
burial.
have to wait in line behind striped tape on the floor between 6 feet
Oh,
apart. So
Same here.
once you get your
same.
food, yeah,
Here
and then
you're
you get
forced
called in order
to
to register.
here you're forced to take a how do you call it? Wagon, you know, a cart.
Cart, a
And they
buggy,
have
a cab.
yeah they have a certain amount of carts available for the store. They just I don't know what they've
Mm.
done with the rest based on square footage.
We haven't done that over here yet.
There's an employee just washing that bar every time.
Oh God.
We
Oh.
have restrictions on all sorts of foods. You can only get uh, one carton of milk per customer. Only one of most kinds of cans.
Not here.
One of most kinds of meats. Of course, our
Wow.
toilet paper is missing. We don't have any paper towels. Like once the shipment comes in the morning, it's probably gone within a handful of hours. So that's 6 a.m. if the stores are regular open, or it's 7 a.m. if they open for 6 only to the elderly, which they're starting.
Same here. That has
It's
blown
yeah.
over.
So I worked at a grocery store before. It's not a hard job to get into. It's an entry level job for someone out of high school.
I've
And
done
even
it too.
then, you can figure out how you'll a lot of the times you'll learn how to make orders from the companies that distribute the food. And when you have a situation like this, they just ask for more. So we're at the point now where they are asking for more, and they're still running out of things by evening. So will that accelerate? That's the real question. How much more can they ask for? How stretched thin are the supplies? We just don't know.
I apologize. I need to go. It's midnight in Russia. Thank you.
All
Great
right.
having you.
See ya.
Okay, goodbye.
All right.
Yep. Yeah, if I can give one more suggestion, which I haven't heard a lot of people about, and I just by chance started this diet like a month and a half ago. But you got like a whole market of just those powdered drinks, like those full meal powder in a
Soylent.
Soylent shit. Yeah, absolutely. Obviously,
get a lot
shakes
of
have
that
been
too.
around. Yeah, obviously shakes have been around for a long time, but I think the last 5 years they really got the Soylent industry going.
Best name.
And there's actually one called Soylent. I don't use that one, but um, and I got like what is it, 30 meals for 70 euros or something like that, which is not a bad deal. And I got like I don't know, I think 4 packs of that now sitting on my shelf. So that's 120 meals.
Nice.
And actually, that it's saving me space. It's pretty cheap, and I'm
Will
feeling like
survive.
this is a good way of actually um, having something on hand which I can trust on. It's
Yeah, I
tastes like
figure
fucking shit, though. I don't I wouldn't
emergency
recommend it.
rations don't have to taste good.
Sure, it's cake better,
When
but
society
without sugar.
collapses, you won't care about how your food tastes.
No, that's true.
Are they
Well,
made out
less.
of people?
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh, nice.
You might
Yeah.
care about that.
Unironically, Soylent powder tastes like sweet pancake batter, and it's pretty damn good.
Huh, mine is not
I
sweet.
have to try
I
it
hear sorry.
sometime. I might. It, I like the idea of having it as an emergency. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's good if you want to, like, if you're the kind of person that has trouble gaining weight, like if you're really
I guess any other advice, guys? And now we're on the topic.
yeah,
When
learn how
it
to
with
start a
that,
fire if you don't already know.
definitely.
Staying.
Learn how
If
to
you're in
bake bread.
America, buy a gun.
Yeah, buy a gun while you still can, for sure.
Right.
File your taxes if you're in America so you can get your tax return.
I already did that.
You have until June now to file your taxes for this year or for the 2019 fiscal year.
I think ours got extended a little bit as well. All right, but should we wrap it up then?
Sure.
Okay.
Thank everyone for watching. Want to participate in a future edition of this, maybe? Our Discord is down in the description. And till next time.